Hi, everyone, and welcome to What's on Your Plate, Choosing a More Sustainable Food System. I'm Daniel with the Palm to Palm team, and we're so excited to have you today. This is our Inside the Activist Studios series where we interview activists in and out of academia, learn more about their work and how they see the field going forward. This program is going to be 2 hours long, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And also, this is sponsored by Castle at the University of Michigan Dearborn. So about Palm to Palm, just briefly, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We just recently got that designation, so we're really excited about that. And our mission is to build national and international connections dedicated to protecting local communities and native ecosystems from the negative impacts of the palm oil industry, a major driver of climate change. And here's tonight's program. We have hopefully 2 presentations tonight from both Dr. Rival as well as Mr. Soster on their work. Then after that, they'll have a half an hour each. You'll have a quick break so you can get up and stretch. And then from there, we'll have some Q&A with both speakers with Dr. Soderstrom, as well as some audience questions. So if you have any that come up, feel free to drop them in the Q&A function. And we'll conclude with some closing remarks. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Soderstrom to introduce our speakers.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with everyone this evening or afternoon or late night or whatever time you might be joining us from. Um, my name is Sara Soderstrom. I'm faculty at University of Michigan and director of our program in the environment. And we're going to kick off with Keith Soster, actually. And I am thrilled to be able to introduce Keith is someone who I have long seen within University of Michigan. He's director of student engagement for M Dining. He's been part of student life here in many ways. And Keith is someone who I have so respected for the way that he amplifies and engages and works with people across the university. One of my favorite memories of Keith was years ago when we were frustrated with food waste in the dining halls, and we had a meeting, and people were talking about how much waste was coming through with trays. And we spent an hour and a half hearing people talk about how there's no way we could get rid of trays in the dining hall, and this would be terrible. And Keith goes, you know what? None of our students who are going to be here in September even know that there are trays in dining halls. I'm just not going to have trays in the dining halls. And he had this brilliant lens of it's not a change if people don't know about it. Let's think about what really is a more sustainable effort, and then let's track it so that as there are pain points, we adapt. And the amount of waste that's been saved from Keith leaning in, hearing and thinking about how to innovate, how to create, and how to engage with people with just that one decision is significant. And he's amplified that and done that all across U of M in so many ways. It has been amazing to partner with you, Keith, and I am thrilled to hear more tonight. So I'm going to toss this over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Soderstrom. That was like really nice. I wish my mom heard that. Let me give you a little bit of background about me and my passion around sustainability. My name's Keith. I grew up uh, in a lower middle income family, and I just remember my grandparents living through the Great Depression and visiting them. And everything was recycled, reused, repurposed. It was incredible. And that was before uh, they knew what sustainability was. And so modeling the behavior allowed me to apply that to facets in my life. And I think that was really helpful for me. I'm grateful for it now. Certainly, when you're in the position, you're like, do we have to recycle this again? It can be pretty frustrating, but it served me well over the years. Um, I want to talk about JJ though, because before I started here at the University of Michigan, I worked for the Toledo Zoo, and JJ is an orangutan that didn't get along very well with the other orangutans, and so he spent time behind the scenes. But when the other orangs were out, then he was uh, behind the scenes in his enclosure. And when I got tired of zoo visitors, I got to hang out with the animals, and JJ was one of those animals. And he was fixated on my clothing. He would stick his fingers through the cage and try to figure out why I was wearing layers like a shirt, a sweater, and then a coat on top of it. Um, and I enjoyed JJ tremendously. In fact, when I left the Toledo Zoo to come here to the university, JJ painted a picture using maize and blue, and his keeper gave me a picture, and my kids actually framed the picture along with JJ's picture, and it's hanging here in my office, which is really cool. And so, I want to say this: I learned more about his natural habitat and how it was being deforested in order to go grow palm. And and so not just that, but the exploitation of local farmers, their families, the destruction of other animals for palm oil. And so palm oil is one of those things that's near and dear to me from a dining lens. And so not purchasing palm oil and identifying ingredients that we have in our menus that might have palm oil as an ingredient. So, for example, shortening, some shortenings have palm oil. And so, my love for JJ and my relationship with him just allowed me to continue advocating for sustainable practices when I came to the university. So that's a little bit of background on me. I do want to talk about what we've done in our dining program. I have been in, well, I've been at the university 21 years. The first half was in operations, and then the second half for the last 12 years have been in my current role as Director of Sustainability, Student and Community Engagement. So I know it's a long title, but being able to connect concepts that students learn in the classroom and apply it in a learning lab outside of the classroom, but on campus, can be pretty powerful to move initiatives forward on our campus, but also allow students to connect the dots between the concepts and real world experiences. And so I get the opportunity to learn from our students as they apply these concepts, and I think that's pretty cool. And so I want to go through just our campus has some general or like if you ask me what the goals were on campus, I would say uh we're heading for carbon neutrality, but we have goals around waste, water, energy, um, culture, and food. And so I just grabbed each one of those different categories. I want to tell you like where we've been in the past and where we're going in the future. And so the first thing I want to talk about is waste. And so I think it's important, as Dr. Soderstrom pointed out, doing things like trays, when you're serving 25,000 meals a day, making one small change can really um, make a big difference. And so uh, don't think that any steps you make towards sustainable world um, it is not making a difference somewhere. And so in my position when I first started, I looked at opportunities to reduce not only waste, but food waste in particular. I had an opportunity to work with a master's group of students that were, and they actually took waste reduction initiatives as their master's thesis. And so the students were able to audit our dining program, make recommendations, and then go from there. You can see on the slides, um, we did quite a few different initiatives to reduce waste and food waste in general. Sara mentioned trayless dining, and making adjustments. So, there's somebody that might be in a wheelchair or on crutches and needing assistance. And so we had a few trays that first year to assist people. And so making accommodations that were appropriate, while also educating the students on waste reduction initiatives, I think was really important. So when we had trays, people put a lot of food on one tray and their eyes were always bigger than their bellies. And so removing the trays forced them to visit all the different stations in a dining hall and make a choice about how many items they were going to take. And so the whole premise was if they took one or two plates and sat down and ate, and they become full from there, then they weren't going to go back for more food. So the first step was trayless dining, and then we made some people mad, but explaining our process and why we were doing it was, I think, enough to satisfy people. The next uh, semester, we introduced small plates or tapas style dining. And so at home, I did this kind of research, right? We had 10-inch plates, and I hid the 10-inch plates and I bought 8-inch plates. And so my family still filled up the 8-inch plate, but they were eating less and they were full after they did eat. And so the 10-inch plate, there was always leftovers. And if they weren't scraped into the trash, they would wrap it up, put it in the fridge for later consumption. But in the dining halls, students don't have that opportunity. So small plates allowed them to try different station food items and figure out their needs as far as how much more food they wanted. So we did that, small plates, trayless, and then uh, we educate, and that's probably the biggest thing that we can influence our consumers is through education. And so every year we get 10,000 new students, and being able to explain our culture of sustainability on campus and why we want them to participate is huge. The first event that incoming freshmen attend is convocation, and we host a zero waste picnic made with local and sustainable food. And so, being able right out of the gate, introducing that culture of sustainability, I think can influence our students and eating habits and healthy eating habits during their college years. Students move out from mom and dad, and they have to navigate on their own what their meal plan is going to look like. And so being able to influence health and wellness and eating habits in those 4 years that they're here on campus hopefully serves them well for the rest of their life. And so um, dining is really worked hard to influence eating habits that are healthy and sustainable over time. You can see where we've been. Our campus goal for waste reduction or diversion from landfill, the goal diversion from landfill is 40% goal on our campus. I think collectively across campus, we're at 14%. Our dining program's at 58%. And I'm really proud of that because I think we lead the way, and setting the example for other departments, I think is really important. So when we look at waste and where we're going, we've been working this last year on single-use plastic reduction and doing things like incorporating aluminum water bottles while still allowing the end consumer to have choice, I think is really important. Um, I've spent this semester looking at biodigesters or digesters in general, aerobic, which is water, anaerobic, which is bacteria, and working with some professors on campus and some graduate students to understand when it might be feasible and the most opportune time to implement a digester on our campus. More from a research and educational standpoint, because we have 9 dining halls, 21 retail operations, and 4 catering units. And so being able to pilot something in one of our units can go a long way to educate not only our staff, but the community in general. You can see some other things like we TerraCycle coffee bean bags. So being able to send our coffee bean bags away to have them recycle and repurpose into something else. When we serve 25,000 meals a day, those small steps can add up pretty quickly. So, where we've been, where we're going on waste. Now, I want to talk about food, and I'm passionate about food. Where we've been, There's a national organization that was founded by Stanford and the Culinary Institute of America called Menus of Change University Research Collaborative. And that is universities across the United States that do research associated with food. And the whole goal of that program is to reduce red meat consumption, increase plant and plant-based proteins in order to balance the environmental impact of our food choices. And so that has been my vibe for the last 4 or 5 years. And so the idea is going back to what I said previously, developing healthy eating habits that'll last a lifetime. I'm not going to read through all of these. I certainly want to point out some things. You can see in the top right-hand corner of this slide, there's a what's in season. When you consider that we have students from not only across the country, but around the world that attend University of Michigan, and they don't know what seasonal produce looks like or what's available, I do want to say that Michigan has the most diversity in crops only after the state of California. And so we have a lot to celebrate there. And being able to guide people on sustainable, local, fresh tasting food is important. And so I'll give you one example. I love cantaloupe. There's only like a 3 week window in the summertime where cantaloupe tastes awesome. It's not crunchy, and it's just so good. And so being able to guide others through a pocket-sized pamphlet. So when students are navigating the dining hall or the grocery store, they have opportunity to reflect on that. We also highlight what we purchased from the campus farm in this What's in Season brochure, which I think is pretty powerful, connecting the food that students grow for other students. And Dining has made a commitment of at least $100,000 a year in produce purchases from our campus farm so that they can be sustainable over time. I think that's pretty cool. You can see the palm oil messaging right there. You know, in retail, we have things like Snickers bars that contain palm oil. And so I made a comment earlier about offering choice, and we don't want to take choice away from people, but we can educate at the point of purchase, right? Or right next to where the Snickers bars are located. And so educating our consumers, allowing them to still make a choice, but allowing them to think about what that choice is and how they might navigate moving forward, I think is really important, especially on in an educational institution. And then I love the picture that's down there on the bottom. That's farm to table dinner. We just did one this week. We have a food service director summit that we host every year and have for the last 7 years on our campus, which brings people from all over the country here. They learn about sustainable food, and they get to make lots of great food. But on one of the nights, we set up a table right in the middle of the campus farm, and you get to see the chefs picking the produce and then preparing it and serving it. And talk about farm to fork, you couldn't get any closer to the food that's being grown there. And I think that's pretty cool. So that's where we've been. I want to say this. I want to show this slide because a couple years ago, we went to a blended burger, a 70-30 split between beef and mushrooms. And that 30% reduction has served us well. So these calculations were based on last year's purchases of beef. And we used Dr. Marty Heller's calculator for carbon emissions in our dining program. And so you can see that by reducing our meat consumption, as it pertains to the blended burger patties by 30% is equivalent to taking 83 gasoline powered passenger vehicles off the road for 1 year. And so those little baby steps, when you uh, multiply them times 25,000 meals a day, they add up pretty quickly. For food, where we're going, we did an audit a couple of years ago of our entire program. You know, we've done great work, and uh, I make baby steps and look at different things and initiatives, and students come with ideas. But I engaged some of my student interns to do a full audit of our dining program. And this color wheel with environmental sustainability and social sustainability are at the core of our work. And then around there, things like water usage, biodiversity, all of those different categories, we can look at what we've done or what we could be doing moving forward, and then applying this wheel to the things that we've accomplished and set goals for the future. On the outside of the circle, you'll see all these little colored boxes, and those are sustainable development goals that are from the United Nations. And so when I think about education and sustainability, let's start here at our table. Let's educate the campus community. Let's work with the state of Michigan, and let's live into the United Nations and their goals so that whenever we're questioned, we can talk about our work and how it relates to world goals and campus goals in particular. I've been working with the Humane World for Animals, which used to be the National Humane Society of the United States. And so the Humane World for Animals is obviously a world program, and they challenged our dining program to get to 55% of our menu being plant-based. And we're currently at 48%. So we have some work to do to get to that goal. But it goes back to balancing the environmental impact of our food choices and celebrating local Michigan produce and serving our students well through healthy eating habits. And a couple of years ago, we worked with Dr. Andrew Jones and Dr. Leslie Huey to do some nudge behavior techniques in our dining halls. One of those techniques was around carbon labeling. And so you see the stoplight green, yellow, red labels, and we post that on every one of our menu items. And the hope is that our students will look at the food item, look at the carbon label, and decide on what they want to select and the environmental impact by choosing the right menu items. And so we've continued to have those on our menus, and I think it's pretty cool. Um, Climate action, where we've been. So we looked at things like reducing deliveries. If you visit our back docks in dining at 5:30 in the morning, there are trucks lined up waiting to drop off produce or all of our groceries or bread or dairy or whatever it may be. And so thinking about things like reducing deliveries, consolidated deliveries, reduce emissions, it ensures that people are being thoughtful about a full truck before they come and deliver, and I think that's really important. And then we've done lots of collaborations. The CNAP stands for Carbon Neutrality Accelerated Program, and that was the work that Dr. Jones and Dr. Huey did with our dining program. Um, and then there are some other ones. The C's Master's program that I talked about in reducing waste. Last year, I sponsored an online MBA student group to work on sustainable procurement contract language. So being able to leverage the student voice on our campus has served us well in dining, and they're excited because we're being inclusive and they're allowing them to grow and learn. And I love working with the students because I get to learn from them. And I don't have to pay tuition. I know that sounds rude, but I get to learn from them every single day. We last year collaborated with more than 30 different higher ed institutions or community members. So I work with the Ann Arbor community, which is our local community. I've worked with Stanford, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Cornell, Notre Dame, the list goes on and on. And so being able to call up people and say, hey, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing. And more importantly, sharing what we've learned and where we've failed allows other people to succeed without stubbing their toe the same way that we did when we when we went down a rabbit hole or whatever. And so sharing our efforts with others, I think, propels all of us forward in a way that is beneficial for everybody. Moving forward, the key initiatives on the left-hand side here is really the work that we've done kind of in sequential order. So, local purchasing, we have a goal of 20% local by 2025. We've succeeded that 20%. And so it's time to set a new goal of what that's going to look like. 88% of our food is purchased from Michigan-based companies. And so when we can't hit that bullseye of 20% local and sustainable, there are other bullseyes. So can we purchase from Michigan? Can it be from the Midwest area? One small example is we no longer air freight anything to reduce the carbon emissions associated with those foods. And so when our chefs want to air freight something from New Zealand or Australia, we do the timeout. Let's source more locally and figure out what's going to be more sustainable. And I think that's important. I'll continue to work with institutions like MCURC and the National Association of College and University Food Services. The list goes on and on. And so being able to learn what others are doing, share what we've learned, is a great collaboration effort. We have a new dining hall that opens a year from now. And we implemented two dishwashers in that unit simply because when we have a dishwasher break in one of our residential halls, we have to flip to paper products. And we use compostables everywhere. And so during COVID, students couldn't eat with one another, and we had to send them off with compostable packaging and think about like, I want soup, I want a salad. They all have to be in separate containers, an entree, separate container, dessert, beverage, napkins, silverware, a bag. And we were spending approximately $1 per student on the compostable packaging. And when you think about 25,000 meals a day, that adds up rather quickly. So we invested 120, 140,000 on a brand new dish machine times two for the new dining hall so that if one breaks down, we can still use China silver glassware, which is the most sustainable choice when you're thinking about food and serving the masses. And so those little things I think are important. The new dining hall will be all electric. We don't have any gas. And so preparing our chefs now to cook without gas ranges and fryers, I think, is a challenge, but showing them unique ways that they can still prepare awesome food while being sustainable is part of the work that I do. Culture and education, where have we been? Well, educating ourselves on the work, right? When I first started in this position, I wanted to implement composting in the back of the house. And so once our staff in the back of the house saw that they could save money by really analyzing the scraps that they were throwing out. And I'll give you one example. We no longer peel carrots, we wash them well because the outer skin is dense in nutrients, and peeling that just is throwing food that could be edible into the trash. I worked with student groups on wasted dinners and doing things like water infused with pineapple cores and strawberry caps. Is a great way to demonstrate how you might upcycle or recycle food that one might normally throw out. And so having fun while educating others and reducing things like food waste is important and valuable to our campus community. Um, Walking the talk, waste reduction initiatives, local and sustainable procurement, cultural awareness, expansion of heritage celebrations through food. We had a chef from Kenya named Chef Kabui, and he was able to talk about the sustainability initiatives he did back home and work and educate our chefs. And then they prepared food together. We invited students to come and try different, unique food from a different culture. And that's always fun to engage. And so being inclusive with the campus community helps us to be transparent in our food, in our dining halls, and builds trust among our constituents. Where we're going, we implemented this program last year. When you think about social equity, I think about all the different people that touch our food along the whole food system. And so, thinking about who our farmers are and what their cultural background is, what their history is, I think becomes rich for our students to learn. And so there's a program, national program called the Humans Who Feed Us that highlight minority farm workers. And so we got a bunch of different stories of these farm workers, put them in frames, and would place them in all of our dining units, retail and residential. And then we came up with this idea. Okay, we're talking about the farm. What about our distributors, our aggregators, our producers, our chefs? And so we developed a program called The Humans Who Feed Us, where we highlight our own staff and their cultural backgrounds and what makes them passionate about food and serving those in our community. And being able to do that highlights and recognizes our staff and those that touch the food system. But it also allows people to really think about their food choices, about waste reduction initiatives, and honor those that have served them through the work and the heavy lift that they do out there, whether it be in the field, in a truck, in a processing plant, or in our own kitchen. So as we go forward, things like the Just Ask program, where you can customize anything in our dining halls by just asking the staff, I think is an important component. And while we've had the Just Ask program in place for a few years, we revisit it every fall along with waste reduction initiatives so that we can educate people. And so increasing the team engagement and sustainable initiatives to build community ownership and explore possibilities really ignite the passion in our staff and our students. And so I get bombarded with, hey, I've got an idea, and I have a hard time saying no to people. So let's figure out how to get to the yes and implement it. I had a student that I worked with that went to Copenhagen 2 years ago to study abroad, and they collect bottles and cans for deposit like we do here in Michigan. But on their trash cans, they put a shelf that says donate bottles and cans here. And by putting that shelf there, they were able to divert what people would normally throw their cans in the landfill bin onto the shelf. And it also served a second purpose. It allowed those in need to collect those bottles and cans and then collect the deposit off of it. And so he came back to campus. We initiated a pilot. We engaged students from the environmental 391 class, which Dr. Soderstrom at one time taught. And we piloted it. We were able to realize more than 30% drop or diversion away from landfill by simply placing that shelf there. And we secured enough data to submit an award to a National Association for Food and won a gold award for that. And then we turned it around and leveraged that gold award along with the research that the 391 students did to advocate for permanent implementation. And as we speak, we have those shelves being implemented on our campus this fall, which I'm really proud of. And it leaves a legacy for the student that graduated already that brought that idea to campus. And so being able to influence our campus community through what you've learned in class, I think is pretty powerful. So we've had the carbon neutrality acceleration program. Where we've been, you can see I talked a little bit about Dr. Huey and Dr. Jones's work. We implemented something called Meatless Mondays, and we had people going, "You're taking food away from us." And so we had to flip the script and call it Sustainable Mondays, which allowed us to broadly educate about all the sustainability components while still not serving red meat on Mondays. And it's become commonplace. We've implemented it in all of our dining halls. And when you think about, we did a study that looked at Mondays versus Wednesdays because our traffic in the dining halls kind of mimic traffic to class. And so if somebody has a Monday, Wednesday class, they're going to hit the same dining hall. And so we measured the reduction in carbon emissions from a Monday versus Wednesday, and that allowed us to advocate or expand our initiative to all of the residential dining halls. And so being able to back up what we want to do with data, and considering that our university is a research institution, we're serving multiple purposes by doing all of that. Where we're going to continue to look at nudge behavior. We're currently involved in a diet diversity research study with MCURC, and the Food for Climate League is doing a study called Serving Up Plants by Default. So those two studies are being done right now on our campus. And what we learn from that, we'll implement what works, share that information with the community and our partners, institutions across the country. Um, and so we're in the process right now of trying to figure out what 2030 goals look like and 2040 goals look like. And we know that carbon neutrality is going to be in there, but should we increase the local and sustainable from 20 to 25%? What other goals are important? And so as the campus decides on how they want to forge forward on developing new goals for campus, we can continue to make baby steps. And I use this verbiage all the time. I talk in food puns. Where are the low-hanging fruit or quick wins so that we can implement things and continually engage students along our journey? So you can see on the left here on the bottom, those are the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, and I categorize them in environment, social, and governance because ESG has become a big tag word these days. And then on the right-hand side, you'll just see that our student success is really built on a foundation of wellness and nutrition, sustainability, learning, academic engagement, community, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a picture of our student interns that collaborated with our chefs to host a zero wasted dinner. And you can see on the bottom of the screen infused water there. Being able to partner with students and host dinners like wasted dinners, I think is pretty powerful. This is one of my student interns that during our zero waste at convocation, we have compostable bins. We educate during that event. And that engages our students. We participate in Harvest Fest at the campus farm every fall semester. And students don't want to hear from this old guy. They want to engage with their peers. And so I'm always taking student interns with me so that they can tell the story. And I think that's pretty powerful as well. And that's our executive chef, Frank. He's in the hoop house on the campus farm, celebrating all the produce that he's able to secure for our dining program. And I think that's it for me. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sara Soderstrom to continue our discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keith. I feel like every time I hear you talk, I learn even more about the different things that are going on campus. And it's such a nice recognition of all of this collaboration. And I think what we heard from Keith kind of brings in this space of collaboration in the University of Michigan system. What is exciting to look about in thinking about our next speaker, and I'm hopefully going to pronounce your name correctly, but please correct me if I am incorrect. But Dr. Alain Rival, as he is talking through his work, also has all of this partnership and engagement and a mix of academic and practice. And so he's a senior project manager for the Southeast Asia at CIRAD, the French Center for International Cooperation in Agricultural Research and Development. And we're especially grateful for you joining us this late. I'm feeling late and I'm at 7, and I know that you are much later than that. So we are appreciative of your generosity and will accept all of this with much support and happiness. I think when you look across his work, one of the things that really exemplifies this is an international approach to engaging across many different sectors, thinking about research and applying that interdisciplinarily around food. And so, a wealth of experience in that way that he brings here. Also, I think clearly key is this connection between practice and broader communication. And so, co-writing a book, Palms of Controversies, with Patrice Leving, really thinking about this conversation around sustainability and palm oil that is especially key for our conversation today. So I am really excited to have a chance to hear more about that and then have some space for questions afterwards. So welcome and thank you.
Hello, how are you? Can
Good.
you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Oh, excellent. Because do I have to connect to give my talk? I'm not very good in those things. I don't know how to do really. I've got my slideshow here. Ah, yeah, on it.
Great. Yep, we're seeing your slides now. Not yet in the presentation mode, just in the work
Oh,
mode.
excellent. So, yeah.
Yep.
Is it
Yes, that's
better?
like a beautiful. Yes, thank you
Oh,
so
okay.
much.
Sorry.
Oh, this is
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
thank you for your very kind introduction. I'm an agronomist, so I am and somehow connected to the food system and the food production, of course. Um, my job is to change the way we are producing palm oil, especially. I'm working on palm oil for a couple of decades now. So what we want to do is to change the way and educate people like you are, guys, on a different place of the commodity chain. We are working in changing habits as well. And we're also working in changing the way we are considering our commodity chain, how the oil palm chain can be changed to be more regenerative, to change the practice, and as a result, to be able to change the landscapes in which we are working. We're working in Sabah in Malaysia. So we are working in a place where this cohabitation between oil palm and the forest is a long story, quite a sad story because most of the forest has already disappeared. But there's still a lot of things to do in try to regenerate this forest and to regenerate the surroundings of the plantations. We work directly with the owners, with the planters, and we try to convince them that agroforestry should be a way to go forward instead of having this very brutal habit of cutting the forest and replacing by oil palm plantations. So we try to follow up. Oh, it works. Fantastic. So we're working on regenerative agriculture, which means that we try to have a production system in which we can regenerate and we can even improve the way we are producing food. And in this case, palm oil, just by the way we are planting and the way we are producing and delivering this palm oil to the market. So to change this wrong habits, I would say, of producing food, we're working directly with the producers, and you will find several definitions of regenerative agriculture. There are plenty on the market. I don't care about who is the first one or who is the best one. The thing they have the same things in common, which is taking care of the soil, covering the soil, reducing soil disturbance. So the soil is a very important part of the regenerative agriculture. I would say if we have to keep one principle, that should be the single one, the only one. Live roots, be sure that your rooting system is working, and practice crop diversity. This is where is the heart of my job, is to convince the oil palm farmers that the monoculture system is not the only one. We can do it differently. We can still have the same productivity, but at the same time, we are increasing biodiversity. I will show you a couple of examples in which we are integrating different crops inside the same places, so that people still can produce palm oil, because this is a job, and it's going to be a long time before they change from A to Z the list of products. But by changing the habits and introducing this crop diversity, we think we can do a lot in terms of biodiversity. Yeah, so this is another way of presenting. We all know that this mode of calculation changes our mode of production. We can have a very strong impact on climate change, and we show you the example of our project in Malaysia, in Sabah. We are slowly but surely rebuilding soil organic matter, restoring the soils, changing the carbon cycle, and we hope to change the water cycle as well, but it's much longer term goal. We all know about this connection, and this is why I'm talking today to you guys. This connection between healthy food and healthy people, healthy plants and healthy soils. We are embarked in the same boat, and even if I've seen and listened to your talk, and it was very interesting what you're doing in terms of education. It's also important to be aware that these commodity chains have a role in providing resources to the communities. So anything we're going to change in terms of biodiversity, or in terms of changing this way of producing foods, has also an impact of farmers. And in Malaysia, which is a poor country, especially in Sabah, our topic is not to suppress oil palm. It's just to slowly but surely change the way people are producing oil palm, so they can still get resources, but at the same time, they are not compromising the earth, and they're not compromising the environment in which they are working in. Another way of talking, diversification of plant species. We talk about that a bit later. Land management, of course. This way which has been inherited from the colonial culture, is to have this land management in which we destroy the biodiversity, we make a plantation, and we think that the people at that time were sure that it was the good way of doing, which is not the case in terms of just looking at the soils, as I said, and of course it has an impact on the water. And social equity is the same as well. It's something we have to think about. It's always this preoccupation of providing resources and providing social equity at the same time as you are producing resources. So it's a long way. It's a long way to engage in changing the way we are producing palm oil. But I will show you a couple of examples which are quite optimistic. I'm optimistic by nature, and a couple of results from the ground showing that we are probably on the right way. So agroforestry is quite simple. In agroforestry project, we are mixing oil palm with other crops. It's simple to say, not so easy to do. We go through a couple of examples. The first one is from Mexico. It's the OptiPalmex project we are developing with some partners in Mexico, in which you can see my friend and colleague Lauren discussing with farmers. And this is step number one, convincing people. This post-colonial system are used of imposing things, saying, okay, you have to plant this type of plant this way, following this order, and there's no other system or else you will lose money. And this simple logic uh, doesn't work fully when you're talking about changing the way of production and moving into more agroecological practices. So first thing first, convincing the people of changing the way they are planting. The monocropping is not a good system, especially for smallholders, because they make them very dependent of one single crop. It's quite easy to understand, but the system has been there for so long. We're lucky in Mexico because this is a short history of oil palm. There's not centuries of history of oil palm like in Malaysia. So people are more ready to change habits. People are more ready to scratch their hand and say, okay, maybe we should mix oil palm with other crops. We change the way we are designing our plantations. So the first thing to do is to talk to people and convince them about the necessity of changing. Maybe they don't feel this necessity. They say, okay, the system is perfect. I'm making a lot of money. I don't want to change. But some of them, some group of farmers are, especially the younger ones, they are very conscious, and they are also conscious about the impact they may have in changing the way they are cultivating, moving from a single monocropping to more diverse productions. So the idea is just to begin with this transition, agroecological transition. So we are working on the agroforestry system in Mexico with a group of 38 farmers. I'm convinced that you don't need to have thousands of hectares to make a good demonstration plot. You just have to make it open and make it innovative. And farmers are not stupid. They open their eye, they scratch their head, and they say, okay, well, that's not too bad. They look over the fence, and most of the time they are ready for innovation. But yeah, most of the time the system is not ready. The surrounding of the plantation are not the environment of a plantation is not ready to this change. So there's a lot of job to do in before planting, in convincing people about the proper design and insulating this agroforestry principle inside a landscape which is not ready for that. It's ready for monoculture at the beginning. So 57 experimental plots have been planted already now with a combination of various species, fruit trees, timber species like acacia, teak, mahogany, cedar. We are in the tropics. And of course, it's integrated with cattle grazing. So this was the first plantings in which you can see the different lines of oil palm and various different crops on a very simple design. But in some cases, the planter agreed to have a more complex design, much more like a forest-like plantation system. We use a lot of serious game, a lot of fun in playing with the farmers, convince them that, look at that, if we change this, we'll be able to change that. And playing games, I'm sure that all the people working on the education field are convinced about the power of this, they call it serious games. Sometimes it's not very serious, sometimes it's very funny. But these serious games are a wonderful tool to help convincing people in changing their habits. In this case, it's important because we're working on a perennial crop. When the decision is made, the oil palm is there for 25, 30 years. So it's important that people agree till the beginning on the project and changing the way they are planting the oil palms. Okay, our job is also to provide technical support, to provide the seeds, and help the people in this design, changing the design of their plantations. Second type of project, I was not really part of it because it's finished now, but it was interesting. The efforts project in Indonesia, in the Jambi province of Sumatra. Big project, big money, interesting and passionating cooperation efforts between different universities in Indonesia, and the University of Göttingen was the driving force of the project. What they did is a biodiversity enrichment experiment, which follows the same philosophy. Uh, what they did is taking an old plantation and showing that it has enough plasticity to become more biodiversity rich, but not reinventing the wheel, just co-planting between the old palms, taking out a few of them and replacing them by forest species or fruit species. The name of the project, Efforts, is well named. Big effort, if I can say that. 160 researchers. I was there at the end of the project. It was really booming. A lot of students around and postdocs, and very interesting initiative. And they were dealing with a lot of, not only about on agriculture, but they also developed a lot of approaches around these parcels. And Efforts is part of the global network in which you have more than 300 tree diversity experiments linked all together. So this is how it looks like. You got the old palm there, and as you can see, some old palm have been cut off and replaced by a mix of species in experimental plots. The area of the project was not that big, 140 hectares, and it was very important for us because we planted after this efforts project, and it was very educational for us. First, to realize that it was possible to have this co-planting, to introduce this fruit and tree diversity in the same parcel of the old palm. And second, it was important to see how these species can have a fruitful cohabitation. And especially when you are introducing species of interest for fruits or for timber, in this case, two families of products. And of course, the sky is the limit. You can invent, you can imagine an agroforestry project in which you have 20 different species. We have 10 in our project in Sabah, but the sky is the limit again. It's just how these plant species can grow together and still provide fruits, which is really the key question all the farmers would ask. Okay, this is fantastic design, but how many fruits can I get, and which type of fruits? They are farmers. They are not ecologists. They want to use the land to make it producive. So different size of parcels, as you can see, different rate of biodiversity between the parcels, and they use this tree islands system in which you have different area of parcels with different types of biodiversity. I will not spend a lot of time describing the system. It's very complete, and they are looking at the flurry of parameters. And of course, the control plots are traditional oil palm, because once again, we have to convince. We have to show that all this thing, this change of design, all this change of paradigm is worth, and the farmers can get some benefits at the end. Okay, so 52 tree islands that they followed 19 indicators of ecosystems. it was really a project on ecology. But what I found that's very interesting, after 6 years, which is quite short in terms of the lifespan of the oil palm, which is 25 years, uh, after 6 years, they can enhance the diversity of the parcels by 250% and the multifunctionality of it by 75%. So it means that biodiversity has been reintroduced in terms of plants, in terms of animals. Uh, so all the indicators of biodiversity are following up, and that's very encouraging for other projects like ours. Um, of course, the larger the tree island, the more diverse it is, and very important. That's why I underlined it. Very important information that this and tree enrichment didn't have any, didn't induce any significant decrease in the oil palm yield, and that was important. So it shows. I was convinced about that. Be convinced in science is not enough. You have to prove that your hypothesis was right. It's not the end of the world. This is my usual saying. Okay? You're intercropping palm with other species, you still have palm oil at the end. And you have more or less the same quantity of palm oil. But the landscape you are creating is so different that it's worth doing it. Another project I love, that was the Sabdende in Brazil. It was the first one by people from C4, old friends. They have a lot of results now, and they were the pioneers. They were the first one to co-plant and create this beautiful landscape in which oil palms are associated with a lot of different species. Partnership is very important. That we talk about that also for our project in Saba, north of Brazil. And what they wanted to do is reforestation. They had degraded areas, and then they were beginning from scratch, showing that they can use oil palm as a matrix to regenerate biodiversity in quite a small area, but very demonstrative. The results now are just fantastic. So what they planted in 2008, so that, as I told you, it was the first well-described project on agroforestry. First thing first, they changed the density. As I told you, sometimes you need more space for doing agroforestry. 148 pounds per hectare, which is the standard spacing, is probably too close for agroforestry. In most of the cases, too close for the oil palm as well. People are thinking that they increase the density of oil palm, they will get more yields, which is not the case because of competition, which is easy to understand. So planted in 2008 with 6 different systems, 18 hectares in total. You don't need thousands of hectares, and this is the thing I'm talking about again and again to convince the farmers. We don't want to change the system on 1,000 hectares. What we want to do is to make demonstration plots into which we can prove that introducing biodiversity is not detrimental to the productivity of the land. It's the exact contrary. The productivity enhanced in many ways. So they planted another row of trials in 2019, which is still growing, of course. And once again, like the efforts project in Jambi, I was surprised and I was really impressed by the speed of recovery of the system and how you can very quickly generate more environmental services than a normal plantation in monoculture. And so this is very encouraging for all the people working on other projects. Another project, which is a younger project, it's a traction project in North Sumatra as well, in Jambi also, in which CIRAD and partners, SNB, which is a Dutch NGO, we're working together to change the practices. once again, convincing the farmers that monoculture is not the right way to do, and uh, trying to instillate these practices of regenerative agriculture directly with the farmers is a challenge. Training of small orders, producing a training module on regenerative practices, which is this handbook here, and training of trainers, changing the habits, changing the way people are considering their oil palm plantation. As you can see, introducing biodiversity is not that difficult. There's cassava, there are different species of palms, useful palms, and growing quite well together with the oil palm. So the idea is still to support the smallholders. It's not destroying the commodity chain. We just want to change it. We just want to convince people that they have to adopt better agricultural practices. And it's not easy, because if you work for smallholders, like you see in the Dende project, in the Sub Dende project in Brazil, it takes long time to convince people, and especially when you have a very diverse system. People can see easily the changes. They can see easily the design, because it's complicated. It's a mix of crop. It's not like planting one palm in one line, and it's all the same and simple, easy to understand, simple designs. This adoption of complexity is a key step, and we hope to get another project again using serious games to convince people in Malaysia to adopt these practices, but being convinced before adopting. And this is a key word. It's not easy to convince people. It takes time and it takes money, and people are used to go fast. People are used to have results very quickly. And we scientists also, we want to have quick results. So sometimes we're not the best person to convince the farmers to go slowly and think about it twice. But well, that's what it is. So traction is a mix of different activities. I will not go into details, but knowledge production, changing the replanting, because as I told you, we're working on the perennial crop. So the change of design, the change of species you have decided to do has consequences on the 25, 30 years sequence. So you better think about it very carefully, and using modeling and using serious game again. We try to forecast what's going to happen if we change this planting design. They have spots of 16 hectares. Again, you don't need thousands of hectares to make a demonstration plot. You just have to design it the proper way. We're doing some training, PhDs, of course, and work on this co-designing. That is important. We don't want to impose a model. The post-colonial model has imposed a lot of things to people. You should plant this like that, using this type of fertilizer, this density, this way of planting, and less and less it's convincing for young farmers. They understand that this way of doing is not the best one. We should have a more biodiverse design. We should have something which is looking more like a forest than a plantation in the future. So slowly but surely, we are convincing people that this change of practice is very important. Last and least, our project, Trace project in Malaysia, we start in 2022. Again, it's a very interesting mix of people working on the ground. MOPP is the plantation; it's an oil palm plantation. UTAN is NGO specialized in conservation in this very biodiversity-rich region of the Kinabatangan River in Sabah, in the Borneo jungle. CIRAD is us. UPM is the University Putra Malaysia, academic partners. Our funders was a French embassy in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. We had a couple of private partners, the Alliance for the Preservation of Forests, which is a group of people working, trying to change the way we are producing food and especially oil palm, but also coffee and cocoa under the tropics. Ferro is a chocolate brand, and Sentiba is also a margarine brand. So this is the partnership we have created to, again, change the way we are planting. This is our partnership. We work on a multidisciplinary approach. I will show you how we're doing. And it's a mix of agronomy, forestry, conservation science. Just like the other projects, it's not only about agronomy, it's also about convincing people. It's also about having a good conservation approach, especially in this area, which is very sensitive to any changes. You can see our elephants crossing. What we do, we install the agroforestry system inside the oil palm plantation. We don't have to have a model plantation in which everything is perfect. We have all the sensors working, and you get a lot of results, make a good articles in Science and or Nature, and after 5 years, everything is finished and bye-bye. Our work is very different. We work on the very long term. We want to convince the planters and to change their plantation design for one full cycle of oil palm, which is more or less 15 to 20 years. So again, it's like many other projects. It's a tree crop project, so it's based on the long-term changes. But what we want to change is to insulate those changes inside the plantation, not from the outside. Real life conditions. We're using oil palm seedlings, and we mix with 15 different native forest species from around. And for that, the partnership with U-turn is very important because these saplings are collected from the forest, and it is a group of women who are in charge of the nurseries. I can tell you this is the most beautiful nurseries I've seen in my life. Very moving, very educational approaches here, in which the local people are trained to grow these species, some sampling from the forest, doing their nurseries, and then making a bit of money with this nursery job. The long-term job is really to regenerate the biodiversity, because this has been a place where the oil palm has destroyed everything. So there's still a couple of places like the riparian corridors around the rivers, in which we can use for having a spillover effect and regenerate a mosaic of diversity from riparian corridors and also the remnant of the forest. We still have a couple of patches of forest we want to use as a reservoir for biodiversity inside the plantation. And of course, we have to convince that all these changes are not detrimental to the performance of the oil palm. So we are following it like any oil palm parcels in the world, looking at the phenology, how the fruits are growing, the yields, the bunch characteristics. We have to convince the owner, we have to convince the planter that the oil palm performance is not that bad. It's almost the same, and it was worth implementing this complex design of agroforestry plantings. The owner gave us 100 hectares. I was very afraid about that. Said, no, that's much too big. So we planted 37 hectares, 38, I would say, a bit bigger than what we planned. Using 15 different forest species. We planted 3,000 trees in the middle of COVID 2022, and we used 3 different planting designs to try to get the most of information we can get from this quite small area of 38 hectares. So this is the design we had. I will go quickly, not to be too boring. This is treatment 1, which is a standard plantation, 1 palm every 9 meters. We first thing we did is just changing the density from 1 palm every 149 palm per hectare, sorry. So 1 palm every, it is 9 meters. We moved to 12 meters. So put a bit of more space between the palms to open it and to have more space to do other crops, whatever we decide. In our case, it's forest saplings, but of course, as any other oil palm-based project, you can intercrop the oil palm with a lot of different species, whether it's timber species or food species. So we designed 2 different treatments with 2 different densities. This is 1 palm, 1 forest trees between 2 palms, or 2 forest trees between 2 palms. This is different replication with different places with different densities. So we planted that. We finished planting in 2023. It is still growing well. We had a lot of visits from elephants, a lot of visits from buffaloes. Working on a biodiversity project is not like an agronomy project. You have to deal with a lot of constraints, but we managed to have a nice planting, and it's growing pretty well. We've been lucky with the weather. This is just an example with the 3 meters spacing and 2 forest species between the palms. Another design it is a forestry design. All these red dots, these green dots are different forest saplings, because we didn't know nothing about these forest species. So we had to plant them together and see how they can grow as a group of as single trees, as a group of 9, or the group of 5 and a group of 9 forest trees. There are no oil palms. The oil palms are around, but in this trial, we're just testing the performance of the forest trees, because we don't know nothing. What we knew is that they are growing well. They have been used for a couple of years for reforestation project, but we have no idea about the growth or speed, the diameter of the trees, the risk of contamination between the species, because the oil palm growers are very worried about introducing a nasty forest species inside their plantation. So we have this design in which we are testing a different combination of species. We use 10 different species with different combinations. So the idea is to see how and to show on the real size how those forest species are working together. This is the design we have. We change species. It's a nightmare in terms of planting, because we have those 10 different species, and we want them to have to do it more or less like a forest, to have a look at the interaction and the competition between the trees, and having this design which enables us to have the maximum of complexity inside the plantation, which is really the contrary of a monospecific plantation. And you can imagine that convincing the farmers was quite a big job. But I'm sure we're going to win. I'm sure we're going to convince them. They begin changing their mind, because now they can see the trees, they can see them growing, they can see the combination between the oil palm and the forest species, and they're quite intrigued. They're still wondering, but they can see what we want to do, recreating a forest to keep it simple. Okay, so we want to qualify and quantify the cooperation and the competition between the species, and to show how fast we can regenerate a forest in this case. Okay, so we do the mixed replantations, different planting densities, as I showed you on the drawing, different association between palms and trees, group of 5, group of 9, group of and individual trees. And of course, the idea is to improve our knowledge, because we don't know nothing about these traditional species. Okay. And we also want to test the ability of these species uh, to be successful in reforestation projects with the high density planting, and which is a bit different of the reforestation densities. The last design we have produced is this forest island, in which we are planting forest species in a sea of oil palm, just to look at the interaction between the oil palm and the forest species, because we are a bit worried about, as I told you, about introducing parasitic species or of something like Ganoderma, the fungus, which is quite common in these plantations. We don't want to favorize the development of Ganoderma in our case. So we have these control plots in which we plant the trees in a sea of oil palms. Okay, a few pictures of what we did since 2022, designing the plantings, our group of experts. The elephants were curious. They want to see what we were doing around here, so they visited us quite often. Planting and hopping. So we did a lot of work in soil science with our students, our Malaysian students. Here is a sensor in which we are beginning to install a lot of sensors for bioclimatic measurements. This is how the plantation looks like here. You have the forest trees here and the oil palms in the middle. Inside a place where the elephants are roaming, a couple of monkeys as well. This is this part of the trial, which is just planting the forest trees and see how they grow together. Okay, so with that, I thank you very much. This is our funny logo, from which you just click on it. You can get all the information about the Trace project. And I thank you very much for your very kind attention. Thanks so much.
Thank you. That was so inspiring. It
Well,
was nice to have an evening filled with hope. I think I
sure.
leaning into the ideas that you shared at the end, this planting and hoping, I think is a nice arc across both spaces as you take the idea of planting in different ways. I do want to make sure we have some time for questions. So I know we had mentioned stretching. I would encourage anyone who needs a stretch to take it. But in the interim, I'm going to start in with the first question for both, and then ask you to share questions in Q&A. So after my first question here, I'm going to let everyone else drive some of the questions, and I'll fill in if we need. But one of the spaces that we have, and I think was signaled in both of your presentations, is engaging with others, and particularly with younger students, younger people. When you think about working with younger folks who are passionate about addressing these issues, what advice do you have for how they might really effectively challenge these systems where there's exploitation, where there's degradation, where there's issue, and support more sustainable alternatives? And so maybe Keith, will start with you on that one. And again, for others to please add questions in Q&A, and we'll start managing that as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess my response would be uh educating our community, whatever that looks like, and researching the items. So for example, in dining right now, we have less than 500 items of thousands that have palm oil incorporated in secondary ingredients. And so while I've challenged our systems team to look at what's currently being utilized as far as those recipes go, and reducing where we can. I've also challenged the chefs and our bakery chef to look at alternative ingredients to replace. Um, Part of the challenge is chefs look at quality and taste and availability. And so being able to educate those folks as well as our consumers, I think that's really important.
Thank you. Dr. Ravel.
Yeah, it's education is very important. It's key. Um, uh, it's everyday job, to convince people and to show them that we're taking risks. Yes, and our job, I think, as scientists, is to manage this risk. Not always telling the truth. Okay, not try to make the reality better than it is. Uh, um, our approach is really science-based. It's really okay. You cannot say that. We didn't. Of course, there's temptation to say, okay, look at beautifully it grows. It's okay. It's working. Yeah, but it's not enough. You have to put data. You have to publish paper. You have to show that yes, co-planting or palm with other species is not the end of the world. It's just another way of doing. And monoculture is quite recent. We use polyculture for centuries and centuries in agriculture. It's just a recent feature we have. We follow this mono-specific design, whatever it is for corn or coffee or whatever crop, because it's more convenient, because it was really adapted to the colonial system. But those times are finished. We have to reinvent a system in which the smallholders, the growers, are in the center, and they take decision. They have a brain, so they are connected. They have easy access to any kind of information in the palm or their handphone. So the challenge of education is there, is to make these young farmers integrated and ready to take risks, which is not easy, really.
No, especially when you're thinking about young farmers where it's so directly connected to livelihood. I think one of the really powerful lenses of your presentation and your approach is this demonstration structure that seems to lean into more of a small wins demonstration, show feasibility, and that longer term lens towards implementation as a balancing of that risk. That is a really, I'm going to be reflecting on that for a while, and I think it mirrors in both of the work that you've done, Keith here at U of M and Alain in all of these agroforestry projects that leverage the opportunity to try something, but to do it really smartly so that you can course correct, measure, track, and move on. So I've really appreciated that lens. Thank you both for those thoughts. I want to jump in. I know we have some other questions, but Catherine West had a theme of questions that I want to come back to now as well. And she was asking a bit around this designation of sustainably grown palm oil. And is that a realistic designation? Is the industry really green, or is this a greenwashing issue? And then as consumers, how can we know which products are supporting sustainable practices and distinguish sustainable palm oil from non-sustainable sources?
Oh, that's been my main topic of research for 30 years. So if you're ready to listen to me for 5 hours, it's okay. I try to make it shorter. Yes, a lot of things have been done, which have not been published enough because people are concentrating in Indonesia, Malaysia, a bit in Thailand, on their own issues. But they did a great job. I was not part of it, so I can testify because I have no interest in promoting the oil palm in other countries because CIRAD is a French public institution. So yeah, I don't earn my money from oil palm. But a lot of things have been done in terms of norms and creating the norms because, we started 20 years ago, 25 years ago with nothing. There was no norms. We were just planting, growing palms, selling the oil, no norms, no quality control, no. And then it was a new product because the major oil was not from the oil palm, it was many other sources like peanuts or whatever. So, what is brand new product coming from scratch, um, um, there was everything to do, everything to organize. Uh, the business, um, the practices, the certification of everything. So RSPO was the run table of sustainable palm oil was the first to begin, um, inspired by a couple of projects from other crops. Um, Slowly but surely insulating this idea of it's not an open market, it's not open bar. You have to follow the rules and to show that you are really sustainable, not cutting the forest, not over exploiting people, and so on and so on. So all these criteria, it's a moving movement. It's we every 3 years we change the standards, we renovate the standards. It's a continuous project. A lot of blah blah blah, a lot of talk, but it was fantastic because I was there. The next RSPO meeting is in November in Kuala Lumpur. It will be my last one because I'm soon to retire. But it's still intriguing and still passionating to see those guys still discussing and try to find a common ground and convince people. So now we have several standards. We have the international standard, which is RSPO, and Malaysia and Indonesia have created their own standards to make them mandatory, which is very nice because the voluntary standard is fantastic if you follow the rules, but you are not forced by the law to follow the rules. Your RSPO certified costs a lot of money. It can be $50 per hectare, $100 per hectare. So a smallholder can afford it. So it's very expensive. All the controls, all the so there are many other ways to do now. People are grouped in the farmers group so they can share the cost and so on. There are certification by places. So if your basin, if your basin of collection is homogeneous, planted the same year with the same planting material, with the same techniques, it's in a homogeneous year to have a group certification. So you can once for all your region or all your county is certified. So a lot of progress in that. A lot of progress in the standards as well. You have the Malaysian standard and you have the international standards. Of course, our aim is to have a unified standard, which will work for everyone. But as I was always defending this idea of having a national standard because it's a good step. There's a no return effect. Once it's certified, even if it's not as nice as RSPO, it's a good step. We just have to push people again on another step because they have reason to be late in the certification, especially the cost, especially the fact that uh, the renewal of plantation is very slow. It's every 30 years. It's not like corn or an annual crop in which you can change your variety tomorrow. Next season you can plant another crop. It's okay. With a perennial crop, it's very different. It's a tree crop, so you have to be sure that this interest to the certification is still there after 1 or 2 generations of planters. So this long-term commitment is very important as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to think through just that time loop of the crop in a way that I feel like I've known, but hasn't been central in my consideration of palm oil compared to other spaces. And the connections to that around certifications and all of these transitions becomes really key. And it's interesting to hear, and I appreciate your expertise from what you've seen on the ground on the reality around some of these certifications. I think as a consumer, too often we hear about greenwashing and then assume all of it is just made up. And so that reality and seeing it as this pathway and journey that is moving towards a better outcome is quite reassuring. So thank you. And thank you, Kathy, for that question. Keith, how are you thinking about this at U of M in trying to really impact the transition around palm oil?
Yeah, I think for as much as Dr. Ravel is working on the farm side, I'm working on the consumer side and working backwards, right? And so the last 2 years, I've worked with four different student groups, two of them master's projects, and two a combination of undergrad and master's. And we were looking at sustainable procurement as a whole. And so when you think about that, um, it- I work with chefs that are looking at price and quality and availability. They're not looking at sustainability. So my influence at that table when they're making decisions is really important, I think. And when we look at vendors and go out for requests for proposals, we bring people in and ask a series of questions. And so the first phase of sustainable procurement is really understanding the language and the questions that you want to develop so that you can ask those questions. And so I'll give you an example. There are vendors where you'll go, tell me about your sustainability practices. And automatically there's the deer in the headlights, right? And so yeah, exactly. And so through the RFP and contract process, can we set expectations by defining our expectation, incorporating language, asking those questions during the RFP process, like tell us about your agroecology practices. And so when you look at our upstream vendors, and I'll give you an example. I go to let's say our coffee vendor, right? Do you have third-party certification like Dr. Ravel was talking about? And are there opportunities for you to do group certification so it's cheaper and more doable for the farmers? We have something in Michigan called GAP and GIP, good agricultural practices and good handling practices. And our farmers, uh, part of our expectation is that they're GAP certified, right? And GIPS certified through our environmental health services. And so when farmers pushed back, we said, hey, there's a practice called group GAP, where four of you practice the principles and one farm gets certified, right? And so being able to come up with clever ideas like that, but the sustainable procurement, contract language, and holding our vendors upstream accountable. Sets the expectation, and then being able to share what we've learned through the process with our other higher ed institutions, allow those institutions that are using our same vendors to get in the same kind of conversations so that across the system, there's an expectation because we know our consumers want transparency and they want to know where their food's grown and how it's grown. So working backwards on my end, those are some of the concepts that we're working through.
It's really neat to think about the full value chain and how we're seeing the connections between both of your presentations. One of the other questions we had asked you to reflect on, and I'd actually like to hear both of you talk about it. I think it's been implicit and more thoughtful and more discussed in different parts of each of your presentations, but I think one of the things that both of you have exemplified in your roles in working on sustainability is really taking into account cultural and socio-political dimensions of food and these types of partnerships. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you take those into account and how they influence the work that you're doing.
Right. It's a very easy to answer this question because without the farmers, we cannot do nothing. Without their help, without the connection between um, conservation and production, because if they are not convinced about that, they will drop it. It's too much effort. It's too much complicated. You're coming from a system in which you have one single species in a single line. You're just planting, harvesting, and that's it. Very simple. And you got these strange guys try to convince you that it's it's not the best way to do because of biodiversity, because of soil, because of many reasons. we are all convinced about that, but our job is to convince people and to be sure that while you are convinced, you are not offending anyone. And that's not easy. It's not my job. I'm not a psychologist, I'm an agronomist. But my 90% of my job is to convince people of changing their practices. And I should have been more trained on that. It's too late now, but I should have been more trained on psychology or of we are developing hoping for some money from the European Union. We're going to have another project with a couple of partners which are very good in organizing those sessions. So I would say playing sessions in which you play, you're just mimicking what's going to happen in the future. So you involve the people in how their plantation will look like in 20 years with a lot of some simple tools. So now we have those uh, um, um, IA systems in which they can really easily prefigure what's going to happen in their own field with their own resources, with their own way of manuring, the amount of money they want to put in their plantations or they're able to put in their plantations. So, yes, any tool, any practice which helps in transparency, which helps in clearly showing what you are expecting from the project is always welcome. And you cannot do nothing without the nurseries, for example. If we don't have this network of nurseries scattered in maybe 20 different villages, so the logistics of that is a nightmare. But when you see the plants growing, when you see the shape of the nursery, wow, okay, was worth. And that's the most convincing thing we have done till now because the project is 3 years old, which is nothing. Um, what we have shown is that working together to build up these community nurseries was a big success already even if everything collapsed. I think this idea of being together and having this project together and share the fruits because the plants are sold, they're not gift to a project, they're the price, they have a selling price. So the farmers can make money also from the nursery. So it's a good start for me. It's a good way of let's see how it grows in the long term, but it's very encouraging to having um, this collective movement of taking care of the nurseries at the early beginning. That was very encouraging, really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. Keith?
Yeah, so I too wish I had training in psychology and human behavior and that sort of thing. You know, the chefs that I work with manage budgets, and so a lot of times it comes down to what's the most cost effective. And so being able to show examples of sustainable practices that can actually be cost savings help propel some of the work forward. And so part of the sustainable procurement work that we did was really being able to give examples to our chefs about how you might save money. I'll give one quick example. We went from paper products to compostables, and compostables are more expensive than paper products, but everybody on our campus, I mean, 21 retail operations, 9 residential units, it's a vast array and people ordering any kind of paper product they want. So Sarah likes bendy straws and I like purple straws. And then people would move around and they would still like order the other stuff. And so we had thousands in inventory. And so when we went to compostables and we pushed out all of the non-compostable paper products and went to compostables, that first year we saved $45,000. And when you can show that kind of cost savings to the staff, then they're going to buy into more of the influence that I have at that table. And so convincing them of that allows them to be more supportive of some of the principles that I preach, because they're like, here comes that sustainability guy, right? But you know, when you can satisfy their needs and then the students' needs as well, or end consumers, then you're on the right track, and then you go from there.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about the number of different influence approaches and the engagement. And so as we think about that, and I'm seeing one other question that was coming up in thinking like there's this lens. I think mostly Francine is highlighting in a comment how similar different aspects are in the process for both of you as you think about creating change with farmers, creating change with consumers, building these connections in communities. And um, both of you have made comments, I think Keith before we started and Dr. Rother recently around approaching retirement. But if you were to think about who's coming in next into your roles, how might it be worthwhile to make connections across these two spaces?
Well, once again, I think education is a bridge. This is where I'm doing a lot of lecturing. Part of my time is lecturing and discussing with students, and
Yeah.
especially agricultural students. As I don't know how the situation is in in the US, but um, in Malaysia and Indonesia, there's nobody wants to study about agriculture or sustainable agriculture. It's not. It's dirty. It's not interesting. It's boring. It's working for the plantation sector, um, and it's very hard to convince young agronomists that it's a good job. It's not a dirty job. Is very interesting, and you can propose a lot of new ideas, and you got a commodity chain. The oil palm chain is quite rich. They have resources, so if they want to embrace, I don't know, mechanization or this kind of thing, they can do it. It's just because the costs were so low that they were lazy and they say, okay, it's enough. We can import people from any part of the world legally, I say, but uh, they can do the job for us. So why should we mechanize? So this kind of adoption mechanism, um, I think, I'm sure, I'm convinced it's quicker and more efficient with young people. So education is really, really, and I'm sure Keith will not be against that. Um, Putting our efforts on education, it pays off in many. And the thing is, honestly, we're also learning a lot. Uh, Try to convince people, try to explain what you want to do and what are the benefits and the risks. Um, there's always something coming out. You never end up the same person as you were at the beginning of the lecture because uh, those young brains are very efficient. So they're bombarding you with the questions, and you're not convincing, you're out. So yeah, yeah. Put our efforts on education. It's probably one of the priorities for sure.
Thank you.
I think having a place at the table or gathering around the table and having conversations can be really powerful in building trust. And so that picture that I showed earlier of the farm to table right in the middle of the farm, why not take my end of the spectrum and connect it to the other end of the spectrum um, by introducing those components together. So Apple National, well, Michigan celebrates Apple Crunch Day tomorrow, and I'm excited about that. Our apple farmer is Dale Lesser, and we invite him to campus. He eats lunch with students. Making appearances and showing our students that here's the farmer, ask him the questions that you want to ask can really go a long way for advocacy, transparency, education. And so I don't think it takes much to connect the dots between the two. You just have to be thoughtful about it and then introduce the conversation and then step back and learn from it.
Awesome. Thank you. It's a nice space to, I think, wrap as we reflect on it. And I just wanted to take a minute to call out a few of the themes that I heard tonight that I think, especially in seeing the similarities and kind of shared themes across these two presentations were especially kind of key. And I, again, just want to reiterate this idea of planting and hoping and how much space came into these conversations for hope. And across both of you, there was a lens of co-design and working with others where it's not any one person or one group telling people what to do, but really thinking about the co-design space and recognizing each other's expertise and knowledge in a multidisciplinary way that is bringing people from all different spaces into this system and recognizing that system's lens. I was really impressed with the approaches for both of you in using pilots and demonstration projects that were informed by different hypotheses, but data driven in how you test and explore and check to show these small wins to help really galvanize more action. And we saw in example after example in both spaces this ongoing, more like catalyst of change through these small wins. But it was through your commitments and your team's commitments for ongoing and continuous learning and kind of recognition of a long-term arc for change in a space where we're facing pretty intense and coming at us fast challenges. And that balance was there. And the other part that I thought brought back to this lens of hope and maybe even some spaces of joy in this work is how much I felt both of you signaled a lens of community in sustainability. And that clearly seemed to motivate both of your work, but it was, I think, in a time when we hear so much about angst and fear, this space of community and engagement and collective working towards these hopefully better and more sustainable futures was really a nice lens for me in an evening where it was helpful to hear. So I want to take a minute to thank everyone for participating and engaging with that, and thank both Keith and Dr. Raval for sharing all of this. It was lovely and generative and appreciative. And I also want to again thank our organizing team, Daniel, Harry, and Francine, for bringing us all together this evening. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you have a nice evening.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. If you're still on the call, I really appreciate you coming on and learning more about the amazing work that our speakers are doing. And after this webinar, a brief survey will pop up. Feel free to fill that out. We'd love to learn about your experiences with this event. And if you have ideas for future events, we'd love to hear those as well. And if you'd like to stay in touch with us as well, we really appreciate it. We have our website up now, palm2palmoilreduction.org. You can see the exciting work that we've been up to. And we're also on LinkedIn too, so feel free to follow us there. And our email is palm2palmreduced@gmail.com. You can email us if you're interested in helping us plan events like this in the future. So with that, thank you so much and have a good one.